What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Verdependent podcast, where we depend on the Verde and Black for our everyday vibes. This week, we discuss confirmed and rumored transfers, recap the open practice event this past weekend, and look at our preseason slate before closing out the episode with a stoppage time rundown of the hottest Austin FC, MLS, and World Footy storylines of the past week. I'm Logan Bartlett, aka Lobar.
What's up, everyone? This is Paul, aka Low Paul.
I struggled to get through that in my single breath that I normally do. I had to stop and take a breath.
Hey, you did it though. Don't worry.
Oh my gosh, this cold
We're
weather
here.
got me freaking out. How you doing, man? It's freezing cold. Everything's shut down today for what seemed to be no reason. Now that it's 5 p.m.
It's a beautiful day here in Austin, Texas.
Exactly.
But no, man, the day was good. I had the chance to trek earlier this morning to drop Kate off at the airport. Mm-hmm. And so that drive was fun, but came back and was surprised to still find some fresh powder out on my patio.
Fresh powder.
Right around 11 a.m. And so I just had a chance to take a little break from work and create a little 3-inch snowman, 4-inch snowman, I guess. And
named Janjo.
Named it Janjo. Yeah.
Janjo.
Footy fans know. But
that's funny.
But yeah. How about you, man? Staying warm?
Yeah, man. Chilling. Worked from home today because campus shut down.
Yeah.
It was existential crisis of weather, but luckily we prevailed. I had some meetings, had some work. Held it down. It's a good day.
Hell yeah.
So I'm ready to talk about this dang old footy, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it, man. We got a lot of movement. Some even announced this morning, right? So we'll talk about that as well.
5 sure.
Sebastian Driussi, after 3.5 years as the guy, is officially out of Austin after being sold for $10 million to his boyhood club, River Plate. The wisps of smoke quickly evolved into a surefire possibility after many thought this was just another offseason of unsubstantiated rumors and River Plate posturing as a suitor, right? Fan base is split in reaction, some sad, some glad. We spoke on this a bit last week, but now that it is official, are you team sad, team glad, or somewhere in between?
I am definitely team somewhere in between. And, you know, for folks that follow me on Twitter, they probably have watched me go through the 7 cycles of, or whatever, steps of grief.
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, it was the manner in which he exited, but all the best to him, and thankful for what he did for the team while he was here. But God, he sure loves River, man. Like his Insta story is just full of that.
Yeah, it is. Always has been,
but,
you know?
Yeah.
It was in the stars. We always knew it would happen. Yeah. But obviously you just wish it doesn't happen this way. Right. Yeah, I'm team somewhere in between. I was sad in the moment, glad in the moment, and now just kind of like, it is what it is, dude. The way he went out was pretty whack, but then he came back and like posted a lot of nice stuff about the club, had some good visuals that were, you know, nostalgic, reminiscent of our time together. That's pretty neat. But, you know, you step back and you look at it a little bit removed, it's easier to swallow, and it is what it is. But
yeah, no, for sure. I think for me, as I started to remove myself away from it a little bit more, I realized this, but like in Austin, obviously, you know, our sporting greats, you know, hail from the University of Texas at Austin. And so we're familiar with, you know, these bigger names that go out and play professionally, and they are away from home, so to speak, but they come back and they're received with, you know, open arms. And, you know, so like, I have to remember that's Driussi going back to River, so to speak, is the UT guy that's coming back to Austin. And so I have to remember that, nice. You know, it's like, we'll have that someday, you know, when our homegrowns make it and go out and abroad and then come back, and, you know, but yeah.
Yeah. It's sad to see. I think I understand what you're saying. And I think that's a beautiful mindset to have, but like at the same time, Driussi's probably not going to come back and like don the badge again as manager or something, right? Like
no,
that's River for him. If anything, you know, he's going to sail off into the sunset there and have a good old retirement probably.
Yep.
But, yeah, I don't know. I was frustrated last week, right? Like this, the nature of everything, him not showing up for preseason, I thought was pretty whack. Never a fan of that. And just holding out for that sale. Luckily, again, we got a good deal out of it. I'm not mad. We got good money. We got our money back and more. And the club has quickly turned around and made something of it. And so speaking of which, the announcement of new signing of a newer younger Argentinian midfielder, and 20-year-old Nicolas Dubersarsky, who will occupy a U22 spot and is under contract through 2030. Nicolas is a defensive midfielder who Roto says is pinned to make an immediate contribution for the club. Additionally, the club announced that we have another signing. We'll get to that shortly, but quickly turned around and made this happen. So with Danny, Owen, and Ilie Sanchez already on the roster, what do you think Dubersarsky's path is to contributing to this team?
Yeah, I think the word utility comes to mind in the sense of like not in the way that John Gallagher is a utility man, like along the wings, but more so within that defensive mid role. But I think this kid's going to be great for us, and I think we've positioned him to really kind of take the Danny path of giving him the space and the time to develop into what will be a really good player, hopefully for us, and also the options for being able to move on from him via sale or what have you, and hopefully gain a good little profit off of that. I mean, and the fact that given his U22 designation, it's like, gosh, man, this was a really good signing. But
I agree. It's a high value pickup. It's a perfect roster length given his age, or I'm sorry, perfect contract length given his age, right? We'll have him through his year 25-26 season. So, we can capitalize on that. He can end up being a star. He can end up being a good player that we get a good sale from. Like there's any opportunity, or if he's a bust, it is what it is. That's the point of U22, right? It's like,
we're familiar with that, at least. Like
exactly.
We've seen what that looks like. Yeah.
And he's young enough still in the next 2 to 3 years that if it doesn't work out, another club will take on his potential at this point. What do you think his role might look like given this congestion in the defensive midfield already?
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they let him kind of hold the lone 6 role, which, I mean, just kind of given where the rest of the midfield is starting to stack up, I don't think that might be the case for him being on the younger end of things. I think they would want to kind of pair him with a pivot. And so, I go back and forth. I haven't honestly seen too much of the kid's tape. So it's hard to say if he's, got the IQ enough to really hold it down back there and cover that ground in front of the CBs. But yeah.
I mean, play style aside, right? We won't know enough until we see it with our own eyes. But to me, I think like this is what the Valencia signing was supposed to be in theory, right? We had Alex Ring, we had Danny Pereira on the roster already, and he played that same position as those two guys, right? Valencia did. And this is just a better profile for that role where we have a guy who's a better age given the type of minutes we should expect from him. He'll be okay. I mean, assumingly he's okay coming off the bench for however long, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and being like a spot starter, bench depth guy. Right. Ilie is a little older already. Who knows how long we end up keeping him around if we extend him longer than his contract. He plays well into his late 30s. Like that could be the case, right?
Right.
But the fact that we have this much flexibility with this dude over the next 5-ish years of our roster, the next 5 years of our existence, like that just spells well that he really has the opportunity to blossom into a role on this club. So it's exciting, man. It's exciting.
And
looking at please.
Sorry. And I was just going to say the fact that he was on Roto's radar is kind of what I would consider to be kind of that base, line of like, hey, this kid's got talent. It's this really knowledgeable GM that we have with Roto. He's smart and he understands like what these moves need to be in the MLS. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he starts kicking on early, 1 or 2 years into.
And Roto positioned it that way too, right? He said in some sort of paraphrasing a quote that he is pinned to make an immediate contribution on the club. Yeah. Like he'll be a somebody who's making, adding value early on to this team. So, well, as of today, it's Austin FC official that Swedish free agent midfielder Besard Sabovic is the newest member in Verde. It was Tom Bogert official before. Club announced it this morning after some smoke from Anthony Precourt last night. Highlights are just that, highlights. But Sabovic's are impressively exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your perception of the 26-year-old center mid? And, what do you think his role is going to be? Same kind of questions as before.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's exciting about Besard's pedigree is just the fact that he comes from a team that I know a lot of folks don't regard the UEFA Conference League as a top competition, but I mean it's one of those club competitions out there in Europe that you look at Chelsea that's dominating in that arena, but
Right.
he started in all those games in the group stage, I think.
Yep. They went
And
4-1-1.
4-1-1, man.
Right.
And so I think he's a big part of that. And that just, I love bringing that kind of caliber of player to our team here in Austin, because it's like you need those players that have seen that that kind of experience and bring that kind of fight.
Agreed.
So it's gonna be good.
It gets really interesting now at this point that back-to-back signings, Ilya Sanchez, Dubersarsky, and now Sabovic, three guys who play positions that we already have on the roster, right? None of these guys are Sebastian Driussi replacements. They are further shoring up positions that Danny Pereira and Owen Wolff already play, know? And so it adds some interest there, because while Danny more so, right, is a very established. I mean, of course, Owen Wolff is established too, but Danny is like a legitimate starter in this league. Like, he's been starting for almost 4 years now, or 4 seasons now.
Yep.
Right. He's expected to be a starter on almost any team in this league. It's adding competition to positions that he would be forecasted to play.
Yeah.
Now, we've pondered on this already, and many others have as well. But does that mean we might see Danny move even further up the field and play something like more of a occupy that 10 space? Does it mean we have that false 9 and we have, a double pivot and a true 8 in that kind of way? And that's what the midfield will look like, is more holding, defensive minded, let the attack run the attack. Who knows?
Yeah.
But with Sabovic, I mean, you mentioned the highlights. He forecasts to be a very skilled connector in the midfield, where he can sling the rock deep on long balls down the line for sprinting Hader or Bukhari. He can be a good connector and drop deep, and play with the center backs in possession like we like, and play it up the midfield, makes steady runs in the space, build up very well. So it adds a really fun wrinkle to this now very deep midfield.
Well, and I think it's important also to remember that, with these MLS rosters, every spot is kind of, it's a requirement to really get some good utility out of each of these players, and making sure that we're raising the floor constantly.
Yes.
Constantly. And it's just so nice to see that. I would argue that the midfield core that we have now, I'm tempted to say it is better than what it was just a year previous, even with Driussi in there. But it's like, you look at all the other components, and it's like, you've got Danny, you got Owen, you've got Besard, Sabovic, Ilya Sanchez, Dubersarsky. And granted, some of these are unknown quantities in MLS right now, but we know what the ceiling was for Alex Ring, so to speak, and Valencia, during Wolff's era. But,
I think you mentioned this, and we've talked about this before. I don't want to go too deep on it so we can get to even more excitement. But you mentioned utility player, and you mentioned that when discussing Dubersarsky, just in terms of he presents a different kind of utility than like a John Gallagher. Looking at John Gallagher type utility, I think now this frees up Owen Wolff for that type of utility, where we've already seen under his dad that he's able to play on the wing, in the midfield,
that fullback also,
right? So he's shown that utility already, and I think it's a good thing when your teenage kind of up and coming player is being relegated to deeper, less play. It's a good thing when that happens, because that means we're bringing a good talent,
right?
But I think he's good enough so that he'll adapt, and Esteves has a lot of fun decisions to make when it comes to Owen, when it comes to that midfield by and large, because it is the deepest we've ever seen, truly.
Yeah.
That 2022 team was top heavy. Driussi, Ring, Danny, right? Like those three guys in starting were incredible. And we had some great movement there, but it fizzled out quick. And here we are now seeing the result of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's exciting, man. I think Sabovic will add a really fun type of playmaking that we haven't consistently seen on this team outside of like Alex Ring in his best moments, Danny in his best moments, but just consistent baseline creativity in the attack.
I really do hope to see kind of this Alex Ring regen in the sense that like you were saying, Alex in his best moments in 22, where it was just like, this is a younger guy coming in and
Mm-hmm.
kind of delivering what we remember from our first captain. And so
Yeah, it's exciting,
I'm
man.
hopeful, but
Yeah,
just you're going to see how it unfolds.
exactly, man.
Yeah.
And while not officially announced, Albanian forward Mirto Ozuni will soon be joining Austin, according to Tom Bogert. Ozuni would be Austin's third DP for a club record $13 million. And at the prime age of 29, this signing hints to Austin's belief that the time to contend is now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what should we expect from the Albanian national team forward? And what kind of decisions does Nico have to make with all of this depth in the midfield and attack now?
Well, in terms of decision making, I think it's clear you start the man because the first word that I've heard being referenced to Ozuni is the word goals, and the dude's a goal scorer,
Yep.
and that's what you want to see. And I think it's great that Roto took a page out of the LA Galaxy playbook, and was just like, hey, let's just buy a whole DP front three.
Yeah.
And
Get a new attack, all in all.
and we're going to do it. And so, yeah, I would agree with you that it does signal a lot of this, drive to really contend this year. And it's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun too. And I guess, well, you know what? We'll get to this in a sec. Because it's a talking point for the halftime. So to that point, it's exciting, man. You're totally right. There's a lot. I mean, if he does pin to be a left forward, we have our front three of DPs in Ozuni, Vasquez, and Obrian. Obviously, we'll get to this. We got some hint that there might be some fun new formations coming out in terms of loading up on the attack. So we'll get to that. But it is an exciting time. He has to be a starter in your team. He's a DP. It's not a Rigoni kind of guy. Like, put him in day one.
Right.
He's earned it,
Yeah.
But with that, let's get to halftime. Let's discuss this open training event, this open practice that season ticket holders were invited to attend at Q2. So that's pretty much the whole description of it. This past Sunday, season ticket holders at Q2 invited to view a live practice, hang out in the Lexus Club for drinks and double daves, and attend a Q&A with coach and players. Paul, you opened the event playing with La Murga as all the fans were funneling into the stadium.
Yeah.
We got some more drinks in ZA. We chilled with the North End boys and the Pirates and saw everybody else of note. All around good vibes. Would you agree?
Oh, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Thank you so much for opening it up. Austin FC, please continue to do this forever and ever. Amen.
It's appreciated.
It is. It really is.
This is what we want.
Yeah.
This opportunity to hang with our friends at Q2 in a more intimate manner. Just have a good old time.
Well, and it's also just, it harkens back to those early seasons and the early preseason days of watching out on the hill, right? And and so it was just nice to kind of take a moment, look around Q2, and even though it's so familiar, it still felt new in that sense, where it's like, this is our first time really kind of getting in here before the season kicks off, just to see our guys play, man, and prep for the new year. But
yeah, we had a chuckle talking about the hill days with Zach and E. Zach pulled out the sunscreen.
Yeah.
And was like, anybody need sunscreen? I was like, what? He's like, I was burned at the hill too many times. Like, you learn quick. It's man. These winter middays are no joke. And it was bright out there, dude. Yeah. That sun was blasting. It was noon on a Sunday, right before the winter storm came through. Like, it was cold and sunny, but it was a good time, man. The main events of the event, of course, were training. There were a couple scrimmage drills where we saw some of Nico Esteves' tactics come to play on the field. Most notably, so much so that pretty much everyone has already talked about it, was a little 4-4-2 action where we saw the likes of Brandon Vasquez, Diego Rubio, and CJ Fogery, to the surprise of many, occupy the double strikers up top. Let's first talk about the introduction of the 4-4-2. So aside from those times that wolf through the kitchen sink to scrap a result, we rarely saw more than one striker on the field at a time throughout our entire existence at this point.
Yeah.
With Vasquez, with Rubio, with rumors of Ozuni, and now CJ, all options up top in the center. How excited are you for the introduction of this new tactic?
I wish I could say I was more excited to see the 4-4-2, but the reality is just it's going to depend on how quick these players take onto it, because I look at someone like, not someone, but a team like San Jose Earthquakes, right, which are quickly retooling to be contenders in the West. And I look at, their two strikers, Chicho Arango and Joseph Martinez, and I look at those are strikers that know how to play in a good pair together up top.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if our core is that intuitive, I guess, so to speak, to have the two up top, in addition to the midfield pairings of how that's going to shape out in the 4-4-2. But
Yeah.
I just feel like it's going to take some time, in the way that like you were saying, Josh used to do that kind of out of haste, and it was never really this designed fallback. But I'm curious to see that Nico will devote more time to it, so that way it's a intentional way to build up in the attack. But
I think that I am excited, and if we get Ozuni, hell yeah, dude! Like I'm all in. I think. I mean, there's so much unknown around it. On one front, if we still had Seba, I would be very excited because while I say this is the first time we're introducing the 4-4-2 truly in terms of like very intentional, this is what we do when we have the ball.
Correct.
Many times that's kind of what happened anyway with Seba, lined up at the 10. He was a shadow striker and sometimes like the front guy, right? That's just how he played. So we were kind of doing that always, but there was so much when he wasn't playing in the midfield during the build-up, we were missing so much of him that it was almost impossible to get him the ball in an advantageous position. So he'd be forced to drop back at like in the left back space and deep in the midfield and like build up in that way before we could get him the ball deep. I think with this, if we're doing a truly dedicated 4-4-2 where we have two legitimate forwards, lifelong attackers, strikers kind of guys like Ozuni and Vasquez, kind of occupying that middle space and playing, circling around each other up top in the middle. Maybe even Obrion, right? Like we have options. Fodry, now we see. I think it adds a lot of excitement. It does bring up more questions to that midfield, right? If we're only going to do two dedicated central midfielders and we have all the guys we named, Danny, Sabovic, Dubersarsky, Owen, Ilie, like if we are truly going to dedicate two strikers in this formation or just an extra forward than we're used to, it just brings up more questions. It's really gonna add some competition and training for these midfield guys
for sure.
But anything to score more goals and get as much attacking talent on the field at once is going to be exciting to me. It's clear why we're bringing in a guy like Sabovic and keeping and prioritizing a guy like Danny on a team like this, where if we are going to have a lot of talent up front to score, we need guys that can get them the ball and take use of that extra space in the forward midfield, right?
Right.
And that's what Sabovic and Danny are pegged to be. So I'm excited, man. I really want to see it in action. It's time. I want to see.
I hear that, man.
And I want to see how they deploy it too, right? Like it wasn't just the 4-4-2 that we saw. We saw that in moments, but there was still the traditional 4-3-3, the 4-2-3-1 that we've seen normally in Austin. So, it could just be one striker, and really it's Rubio that unlocks that, or specific lineups where we have, guys like Obrion, Ozuni, Vasquez, and Bukhari together. Like there's a lot more opportunity to kind of play in that front four space like that.
Yeah.
But we mentioned CJ Fodry as a option here now. Phil West summarized this in a great little article right after the Q&A section. But something Nicolas mentioned, and I do want to mention that he himself outright said, like, we're going to run a 4-4-2, we're going to run a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1. Like these are things from the coach himself. Yeah. He also identified CJ as a profile for this roll up in the middle, and he said, like, we see him in the profile that he fits as a guy like Vasquez who can play a similar role. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's a nice fresh perspective where, even for CJ's case, I would imagine where he spent a lot of his time out on the wing and got familiar playing along the touchline, where it's like now you're operating in a different space, and you're going to have defenders, at your back a good majority of the time, and so you got to get comfortable with knowing how to lay the ball off and kind of find that space yourself, as opposed to not having that direct opposition on the wings. But I'm excited for him. If that's the case, it's going to be a good skill set to unlock for him. Kind of making him that dynamic attacker that that he can be. So
we saw it a little bit, of course, with Austin FC 2 in his penchant to be a target man for the long ball. But also we saw it against the Dynamo in that game where Rigoni gets the game winner. It's the two of them up top. And CJ is the target man on that deep ball, and he heads it forward. So like he's shown that he can play in that type of role and do something of value there. The last thing I'll say here is I'm really excited that we're starting to get some height on this team.
Yeah,
Vasquez is a giant. Ozuni is a giant. Fodry, if we're going to have him more in the attack here, giant. It's exciting to know that when it comes to aerial presence on the offense, or in the attack, we're no longer relying on our center backs to be that.
Right.
And a 5'10" Driussi, as much hops as he had, right? Like
for sure.
It's really helpful when you have those extra 5 inches on your body and can jump like that. So that's just an exciting. I'm glad we're finally building a roster dedicated to size
that physicality and height. Yeah.
It's exciting, man. So let's take a quick break here, man, because I want to get to this preseason outlook and just look ahead at the New England game, but look ahead to the rest of the schedule here before the season. So quick break, and then we'll be right back to discuss all of those things.
Let's do it.
And we're back. With the preseason matches now officially underway, it's time for some uninformed predictions and loosely informed recaps. As of recording, Austin FC has fallen to the New England Revolution in a 1-0 shutout in Florida for their first result under Nicolas. The New England Revolution have had one of the busiest off seasons in MLS, with 19 players going out, including MLS veterans Nick Lima, Tim Parker, Bobby Wood, and Mark Anthony Kaye, to name a few, and 15 players in, including Leo Campana, Maxi Urruti, Tanner Beeson, and Noel Buck. How much weight does this match hold, given the number of changes both teams have undergone?
If you can just take a hot breath on your hand.
That much weight.
And then just hold it. That's about as much weight as as this holds here. But I mean, given the number of changes, I would say if you're New England Revolution, it's a positive, given the way your season went last year, amidst a lot of turmoil, like within the rosters and just results not going your way. And then to just enter in this offseason with a rebuild like that, and your first preseason match out of the gate against a side like Austin that is, publicly just like throwing cash and rebuilding this big offense, Granted, we didn't have a lot of those pieces available to play today, but you should feel good if you're New England. And so I think for us, I don't really worry too much about it because, again, those pieces weren't there to showcase themselves. Yeah,
no, I agree there. I think that's a fair take. As I read this out loud and as I'm reading it back, it very clearly was painting it on thick that New England is essentially a brand new roster, right?
Yeah.
They brought in over half of their senior spots are new players.
Right.
Like they very clearly are playing with guys who haven't played together much,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when I look at, and we'll get to this more in depth, or we can get here now, looking at the lineups for the club for Austin FC in these two halves, at least from a defensive side of things.
Sure.
These are all names that have played together many matches. We started the match with Stuver in goal, Kolmanich, Cascante, Heinzike, and Dessler.
Yeah.
Like that's a lineup that we ran a lot of last season.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Swap Kolmanich for Gallagher a lot, sure, but Kolmanich has been on the team for 4 years, right? He knows the system, or he knows how to play with these guys.
Yeah.
I think I'm holding as much weight as you suggested in my hand on this. But looking at that, one would hope that this defense wouldn't let a goal in. With
You're
one of the best goalkeepers, with 4 guys who play together often, with a consummate professional like Ilya Sanchez, assumingly at the 6, right? Like,
right.
you would hope that they would be able to stop a patchwork roster of guys who haven't played more than a few trainings together, most likely.
Correct. Yeah.
Again, I don't hold much weight in it either,
Yeah.
but it's just like, you want to win this game still.
Oh, of course.
It's still momentum.
Yeah.
It's one of 7 preseason games or whatever we have.
Right.
And for the most part, it's guys who've been around Austin for a long time.
Yeah.
Including the FC2 kids,
Yeah.
Just a couple trialists got run. It was mostly guys that stayed on the team, that were on the team last year. You would hope. So, I mean, what do you think of these lineups, man? And we can go from there.
Yeah, well, I think you bring up an excellent point about the Austin FC lifer, which if you said that term 2 years ago, that would mean that that's a bad player. But where we're at now, I would argue that the folks that have remained in the club from the beginning, you look at like Stuver, Galley, Danny, folks like that, where it's like, they've earned their stars, so to speak, or their stripes. But all that to say is, I think the rosters for each half, because if I'm remembering correctly, these were 2 35-minute halves. Yep. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more along the lines of like, I don't know. I would, on the one hand, I'm telling you to hold zero weight in this, but at the other hand, I'm like, sell the club, because it's like you let some 7-year MLS vet, nobody, put one past Stuver. We're cooked. But I don't know, man. I think it's more so trying to get these guys in green familiar with each other, regardless of who's opposing them. And so the fact that it was only just a 1-score game and that they held it down the rest of the 40 odd minutes remaining is a good sign for me. The
most defensively, okay, whatever, those are the most seasoned guys on the roster. Ideally, they don't let a goal in from a dude who Wyatt Omsberg is his name.
Yeah.
Right. So, there you go.
Right.
But obvious for anyone keeping up with the rosters there is that Brandon Vasquez was not playing.
Right.
And so clearly, if you look at these lineups, we have a lot of unknowns in the front end of the club, the front end of the field for both halves. We have some trialist dudes that we don't really know much of yet. We have kind of
folks like Irvin and
some FC2 kids and whatnot. Like, so people who are competent and can score goals, right? Obrion's still out there. Rubio's still out there. Dudes who will score goals for this club. But with Brandon Vasquez missing, it's, and obviously Ozuni soon to be here. You can bet a good amount of money that some goals will be coming and quick with these guys getting run. We were curious. We were talking with the North End guys and about like, hey, Brandon Vasquez didn't play. Like, what do you think that's about? And Zach had a good ponder of like, he's probably just not eligible yet, right? Because the transfer window technically opens next Friday or something along those lines, and no confirmation that's actually what it is. But you can assume that come LA, come Coachella, we'll have all these guys.
Some red tape, I'm sure that we're still trying to hurdle over, but
Well, looking ahead, we see a couple of USL matches in the lineup or in the schedule here before Austin FC travels out to Coachella Valley for matchups against LA Galaxy, St. Louis City, and Charlotte FC, all in the first couple of weeks of February. With Sabovic and Ozuni, and now as we know, Vasquez, he'll have joined by then. Hopefully be able to all join the club in California. Are you expecting Austin to start their reign of dominance out west a couple weeks early?
Yeah. I'm going to say, I'm a hold off. Okay. Because if I remember correctly, I think we tied a game and then like won the last 2 or something, or we tied LA Galaxy, I think was the last one. I'm not sure. I just remember Jean Kolmanich coming back from injury and I was super excited. I didn't think of anything else.
Yes. It's all blurred.
Yeah. All that to say is that as long as we're keeping folks healthy, that's always, you're going to hear me say
Yeah.
that every
Yeah.
preseason. If we're keeping guys healthy and we're getting guys used to playing with each other, these results really don't mean that much to me. But
I hear
I'm
that.
just ready for Feb
But
22, man. I'm telling
all
you.
I know is that we play the LA. We play LA Galaxy, bro. I want to
Right.
show up with these new guys and put a hattie on their head in the
I feel
first
that.
half and be like, oh
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
Brandon
yeah.
Vasquez is him. Azuni is him. Bukhari
Right.
has 4 assists in the 60th minute.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want that for the club. I want us to go out and be like, hey, we barely been playing together and we're
Right.
already out here.
Yeah, I would, dude. I'm with you, man. I would love nothing more than to take these preseason matches like they're UEFA Champions League finals, man. Because it's a
Yeah,
pride thing, right? It's like
it
you got to
is.
establish that winning mentality
Right.
somewhere.
With the new coach, with
With
an all new attack, right?
mm-hmm.
Like new DPs, $30 million
Yeah,
roster just for
yeah,
those guys. Like we're spending money and we want
right,
results from it. And I
yeah,
know like if you can build that momentum now, it helps, right?
yeah,
While these don't mean much in terms of the actual result, it does help with players' confidence, right?
yeah.
If you see a couple goals at the back of the net in these 7 games,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to feel a lot better than if you're like over 20, you
Yeah,
know? And then you go week 1, you're like, oh shit, I'm in front of Q2 for the first time. There's 20,000 crazy motherfuckers yelling behind me
right.
and I need to show out for them. You're going to feel a lot calmer if you've
Yeah,
just done some work on the training field. That's
yeah,
what I want to see.
yeah. I feel that, man. I feel it.
I feel that, dude. I'm excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited, man. I can't
I,
wait for this season. Truly.
I'm speaking calm and I'm not going like super crazy out here, but just know that internally I'm in 105 right now,
Yeah.
shirt off, waving my kit, trumpet in full hand, like
Yeah.
I'm already there.
I know, dude. I know. I'm ready, man. I'm excited. I can't wait for this preseason stuff to just be over, for it to
Yes.
be late February and we're at Q2 just rocking.
Yeah, man.
Let's get to the stoppage, yeah?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to blast through it. We're going to get you all out of here in 45 minutes. Let's do this. Austin FC announces 5 additions to the technical staff, including assistant coach Nico Bosch, who joins with 15 years of experience coaching in La Liga from clubs like Villarreal and Granada.
Mm-hmm.
Both clubs that we are familiar with at this point, right? We have Nico Esteves coming from Villarreal,
Right.
the academy, correct? And then Ozuni plays for Granada right now, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you think of that hire there?
Well, there's definitely a Spanish connection happening, right? From Rodo all the way trickling down through the staff. And so
Yep.
whatever, whatever links need to be there in order for that staff to feel connected and to move as a unit to this greater goal, which is winning trophies, then, hey, man, like I'll start saying vosotros and all that stuff too.
Right. That's funny, bro.
Yeah.
Shout out to every AISD Spanish teacher who just shunned
all the Spanish
vosotros
teachers.
altogether.
That's it.
Yes, sir.
Estáis.
Exactly. We Are Austin TV invited Diego Fagundes onto their pod, and he spoke favorably of a future return to Austin FC. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I just got to remember people were like waving the finger at those 30 and up signings, and I don't want it to be that case where just because this guy let the homies in for a little bit, it's suddenly okay to let Diego come in.
I like it though. I like it because what you were talking about earlier. Remember, like when you're
But
when
yes,
Driussi leaves, goes back to River
yes,
Plate, at 29, and everybody's like,
yeah.
that could be us.
But
Granted,
but Driussi is going back to Argentina, so to speak. It truly is like a homegrown type thing.
Yes,
This guy is not.
But from our
Austin.
perspective, right? Diego was our day one guy.
Sure,
as a
yeah,
club.
that's right. Historico, all
He's
that
our
good
home.
stuff. Yeah.
No, I think it would make sense, man. He's got his family here, right? He was here for 4 years, right? Like owns property, has connections, has friends. Like I think it would be cool to have.
It would be
your first, club legend kind of guy, right? A guy that people regard in very high.
22 does not happen without Diego Fagundes.
No, 100%. No, and clearly 23 and 24 did not happen without him.
Right.
So Driussi definitely benefited from him. So, Yeah, man, it was cool to see. Shout out to H and the gang for having him on. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Like, that was just cool to hear that in Spanish too. So,
Yeah.
looking elsewhere across the league, Lucho Acosta is on his way to join Cincinnati for preseason action. Can we assume he is set to stay in Cincinnati, unlike his fellow Argentinian 10 who just recently left Austin?
Yeah. It's interesting that I hear this because I also just recently this afternoon saw that Cucho is wanting to remain at Columbus. So something about Ohio is just really attractive for,
Yeah.
Argentinian, South American soccer players. So we got to figure out what's going on there. But
well, I think winning helps.
Yeah.
One, I think if you win for a couple of years consistently and you put that player in a position to win the MVP,
exactly,
probably helps.
Yeah.
But
no, I mean, if Lucho stays, that's good. That's good competition to be in. I know we're going to be playing against them in the season, but yeah, if he stays or if he leaves, that's also, I guess, a positive as well
for us. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Looking elsewhere, we have Miguel Almiron signing with Atlanta United. It's Tom Bogert approved. I think it was something around a $10-ish million transfer. I can't really remember exactly, but I just remember it was comparable to the signings we're doing right now. I mean, shit, bro. Your doppelganger's in MLS now.
I can't believe you'd say that, bro. He doesn't even have a mustache, but no, I'm kidding.
He doesn't even have a mustache.
Right. No, that's good, man. Again, Atlanta is that team to be on the lookout for this offseason, because I would say between them, us, and New England, you could throw San Jose in there, but they're retooling like crazy and they're spending money. So going to be interesting. But
big signing, just more talent to the league too. It's another
welcome
testament
home, twin.
To right. No, you're way cuter than him, bro. Don't worry. I promise I'll never say that again. But yeah, it's just another testament to MLS and the quality of talent we're able to bring in.
Yeah.
Good to see.
Yeah.
And moving to the highlight of Stoppage every week, Chelsea FC. Chelsea take care of business in a 3-1 win against Wolves. Defenders with the brace. Noni steals the Hattie for the defenders.
Yes.
Tell the listeners what all that means.
Yeah, man. So, we hosted the Wolves at Stamford Bridge, and we got to the attack early on. We had Tosin opening up the scoring for us.
Yep, that's a center back. 3 goals.
He is the center back, so that's the first one. And then we had Cucurella, their fullback, get the second one. And then we almost had one from our loney comeback return, Trevor Chalobah.
Yeah.
But it was going to be 3 defenders scoring for Chelsea, but Noni Madueke had to make sure that it crossed the line. And so he took that one.
He didn't like the pace of the ball. He's like, it's moving a little too slow, bro. I got to go.
I mean, I've definitely done that before in real life and also Rocket League, where you just got to make sure that that thing crosses the line. But
a certainty, a guarantee.
That's it, man. But
Trevor wasn't mad at it. He liked it. He was smiling. He got
just got to swap the defense for attack, and we're going to click back on. It's all fine.
But it's a good win. It's a good win to break a streak of poor form in league play. So I was glad to see it. And then finally, with Chelsea women's, they are set to sign San Diego Waves' Naomi Girma for $1 million in transfer.
That's massive.
I mean, that pipeline stays true. The MLS Chelsea pipeline.
And this is good because here we have a player in form. Like she's about to be the captain for the U.S. women's national team. Just wait on it. Officially, she's already captained a few games now. Right. But it's what a proper player going to a proper club. And I mean,
it's meant to be.
It's really crazy to think now that San Diego Wave has $1 million and I don't even know if they know what to do with it, but
invested in Bitcoin.
Right. Buy Houston Dash or something. I don't know.
Tough. No, anyway. That's exciting to see though. It's going to be an interesting, it's just again, testament to the quality that on the flip side, NWSL sends abroad. It's exciting to see, man. Also, I'm a big fan of San Diego Wave just because they're in San Diego, and also Chelsea women's, of course. So it's good to see that connection live and well.
For sure.
Let's wrap it, man.
Let's do it.
We appreciate y'all kicking it with us on this week's episode of the Verdependent podcast. I'm Logan Bartlett. You can catch me on Twitter at LobarVHLM.
And I'm Paul, and you can catch me on Twitter at PaulAndrewFC. That's a government name.
That is the government name. Keep the chatter going online by following at the Verdependent on socials. we did an episode and we talked about stuff that's actually happening finally.
Yeah.
No more making shit up, Paul. We have
I was
news.
never, but yes.
We have real, substantial
news and happenings are happening, my guy.
Exactly.
And it's
exciting, man.
glad to be talking about it again. So
Yes, sir.
we're here, brother.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
Paul, why are you screaming at me?
Oh my God.